Welcome back to another edition of Rare Delicacies. This time we got 3 for 3, and this time introducing it is Brett
Carson,
who you might remember from the Cinema Schlock Society, one of the guys holding the founder hostage. Which thank you for that service. That guy's such an asshole.
My pleasure.
And of course, returning again is our good friend David.
Hi.
Two of my favorite writers who glare at each other across my shelves have been C.S. Lewis, who Chronicles of Narnia, Screwtape Letters, numerous things, and Harlan Ellison. And this is one of my all-time favorites of his stories, A Boy and His Dog. He mentions in, I think, the introduction to one of his collections that a sweet little old granny took her grandson, when it first came out in theaters, to this idyllic-sounding thing called A Boy and His Dog.
Oh my
God.
God.
Yeah, refunds were demanded, and... that you never heard that sort of language coming from an octogenarian usually, but at any rate, this is still cards on the table. This is still one of the only things I can stand to watch with a young Don Johnson. He actually does quite a credible job.
What? You mean you can't listen to Heartbeat on like a repeated loop?
No, I cannot. On the commentary track, the producer said that they did something that had never been done. They said, if you watch closely, you'll notice that the dog never glances off screen for his signal from the trainer. And they said that's because about 2 months before they started filming, they brought Don Johnson in and he worked with the trainer, and the trainer transferred control of the dog to John Johnson. So the dog never looks off screen because he's watching Johnson. That's where he's getting his signals. And that is just one of numerous incredibly neat things about this one.
I did some reading up on this movie. Actually, a really good channel, Good Bad Flicks, actually did a whole thing on this. I remember Harlan Ellison was not thrilled with the final product of the movie after it came out.
Well,
It's Harlan Ellison. Are we surprised?
You know what?
Fair enough.
Could be worse. Could be Alan Moore.
Well, I do have to say, it's not so much that he was, because later he did say that he loved the film. What he was really stuck on, and with which I wholeheartedly agree, was the final line. There are numerous significant differences between the film and the novella, many of which he was probably, for the most part, okay with. But the one thing, and at the end, of course, I'll mention, for those who haven't, and for those I won't spoil for either of them.
Yeah, don't spoil.
I love that neither of them have actually seen this.
I will say this: I have read the novella, and I'm hesitant to say this before I've actually seen the film, but if they screwed up the final line, you're kind of almost missing the point of the novella. Without spoiling anything now.
I guess in the end it all depends on what it was they replaced it with,
Fair.
Yeah, so, but that is a good stopping point. That's a good point right there that we can leave off and jump into it. Because I myself have never read the novella. I've never read anything by Harlan Ellison. I just am aware of his existence, and I know that he's one of the most influential writers of.
And for just a brief side note, for those who are super fans, you're probably already aware. For those who, like me, are getting their feet wet with Harlan Ellison from watching this film, this is actually only a part of. There have been other things that have been released concerning the two main characters, and they were recently collected. Harlan actually did go in. There was an unpublished teleplay because it was going to be a TV series, and there are several that they have all now been collected. So if you go on either eBay, Amazon, or HarlanEllisonBooks.com, you can actually buy a book called Blood's a Rover, and it contains the entire piece. But this is at the time that this was done, I don't think anything else was even written with it. So this is all that existed at the moment. But
Right. I do have to ask one quick question, because the case is just amazing. Did you get that from Harlan Ellison's website? Because I know he's very particular. He was very particular about selling his stuff, and it's nearly impossible to get his stuff unless you order directly from him. Did you get that from him? Or?
Honestly, I don't remember. It's been I've had it for so many years. Yeah, you can actually.
It really looks like an old PS1 video.
PS1 video game container, and
plus the fact that whomever did it and turn around this for the front.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that it's actually Harlan.
And they spelled Heinlein's name wrong too.
Well, and we're still debating whether or not it actually is Robert Heinlein.
Fair enough.
Or it actually is Robert Heinlein.
So yeah, okay, I'm leaning towards duplicate, but
in addition to the fact that it is a very decent print of the film, especially for when it was made, it does have an actual commentary track, and it's also quite good.
Okay.
Where I think they might, in fact, mention the fact that Harlan really could not stand the last line, the last exchange, rather, between the two main characters.
Now it's up in the air. We're going to have to see, based on different sensibilities. Let us jump right into A Boy and His Dog.
And now I wanna be your dog. And now I wanna be your dog. And now I wanna be your dog.
It started Mad Maxy, and then all of a sudden it turned into Kabuki Music Man.
Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah.
Kabuki Music Man Wicker Man. Kabuki Music Wicker Man.
Well, I mean, even with effects of the day being what they were, if you wanted to portray, I guess it was more a matter of, first of all, portraying that very few, if anybody, down there has actually seen the sun in X number of years, which would normally account for the white skin. But also, I guess they all look so incredibly distasteful to just paint something on. I'm guessing anyway.
This came out in '75, so this was a good I think 4 years before the first Mad Max, and a good amount of time before Road Warrior. So this is definitely one of the precursors to a lot of the post-apocalyptic genre that we know. And I was kind of in my comfort zone with everything that they were laying down there until he arrives at that what was it called, the
Down Under.
Down Under, when he arrives at the Down Under, and then I'm just like.
Yeah, it's that's yet another significant difference between the. I mean, they described some of the things. He has a long paragraph that he goes into where he says that listen to band concerts in the park, because in the novella he's actually down there for I think more than a week.
Oh, geez.
So which makes it all the more miraculous that Blood not only stayed around but is alive when he's. When he comes back up, but he says they listened to band concerts in the parks, and they did this and they did that, and they went to their church services, and they walked hand in hand with some of the ugliest women I've ever seen in my life, and they bored the ass off me. I'm pretty sure Harlan, would have loved the idea of the machine they hook him up to. That also was not. That was not in the novella. Yeah, they basically. They tell him that is why she did bait him down there, but yeah, he's going to have one of them, and they expect offspring.
Oh,
and
but instead they decided to take it a step further and make him a make him a one-man dairy.
That's
totally something Harlan would have done. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure he approved. He said at one point that I think it was in the introduction to his compilation "Blood's a Rover" that he started on the screenplay, and after X number of months, he said this was the time when the machine was starting to run a bit dry, and he said after X number of months with no pages. The producer, I think Alvy Moore or whomever, he threatened to write the script himself.
No.
And he said, I buckled down, got done, and I got 4 pages into it, and I could not write another word. So he did actually collaborate. In other words, the screenplay is not entirely Ellison.
I mean, it said even on the credits that L.Q. Jones
himself,
that he wrote the script. Now, what was the final line in the book? You guys are saying
here we go. She got a pouty look on her face. If you love me, you'll come on. I couldn't make it alone out there without him. I knew it. If I loved her. She asked me in the boiler room, do you know what love is? It was a small fire, not nearly big enough for any rover pack to spot from the outskirts of the city. No smoke. And after Blood had eaten his fill, I carried him to the air duct a mile away, and we spent the night inside on a little ledge. I held him all night. He slept good. In the morning, I fixed him up pretty good. He'd make it. He was strong. He ate again. There was plenty left from the night before. I didn't eat. I wasn't hungry. Here is where I think instead of the last exchange, they ought to just, redub while Don Johnson is still alive, preferably. But if not, I'll be glad. I volunteer as tribute. Inobtrusively dub in a desert wind type, effect, and have it as, we started off across the blast wasteland that morning. We'd find another city and make it. We had to move slow because blood was still limping. It took a long time before I stopped hearing her calling in my head, asking me, do you know what love is? Sure, I know. A boy loves his dog. And just the wind, and with all that, while you see Vic and Blood, walk off towards over the hill, and then the freeze or fade out, however you like.
Again, it's weird to me that he wouldn't just add that line. There was plenty of room to fit that line in the way they end the movie. You could easily have Blood just ask him any regrets, and have Vic just muse on the whole thing, like saying, "Yeah, she once asked me, do I know what love is? Well, it's you, buddy."
Sure, I know.
Yeah.
Boy loves his dog.
Yeah. You can even paraphrase the line so it sounds a little bit more natural. But in any case, yeah, you could have fit that line in. It's a wonder to me that L.Q. Jones didn't want to just fit that in there. I'm sure it would have pleased Harlan.
Well, he said that, and he's quite right. He said that it was even at the time. He said it was complete, sexist, chauvinist bullshit that appealed to frat boys. But he said at the time he said, but I have to admit, L.Q. Jones apparently knew what he was doing when it came to the market.
For all intents and purposes, this is like a archetypal. One of the things that started the archetype of the post-apocalyptic genre, and a lot of things I can unfortunately picture what would happen in an apocalypse like this. You definitely think that a lot of the gender taboos would pretty much go out the window because of our base survival instincts. Now it does have the exploitation movie kind of feel to it. If I remember correctly, this was something of a low-budget film.
Oh yeah,
I think something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a kind of exploitation feel in the way it's made and the way it looks, but when it comes to the world it's portraying, it makes too much sense, especially when we look at where we are now and the way we fear the world's going to go.
Some would say that makes it all the more necessary.
Yeah, it's kind of scary, the notion that this future could still be possible.
When I first saw that Harlan was gone, I saw that, I went back. I'd been meaning to get a copy anyway of a small book, a small compilation of his random wit and wisdom called Bug. A term that he himself coined, and one of them he says, I really despise the word fans in relation to the people that like my writing. He said, I'm their adversary. I'm not there to make them feel good. I'm not there to, he said, I don't care if they love me.
Harlan Ellison was the character.
Oh, granted.
I have a feeling I would never want to talk to this man, but I'd more want to observe him.
Yeah, one of the things that he said, if you make people think that they're thinking, they love you. But if you really make them think, they hate you.
It's not wrong.
I guess it all depends on how you feel about what it is he's making you think about.
True.
Yeah.
Also valid.
Yeah, because if you disagree or if you have some revelations that are making you feel uncomfortable based on your own sensibilities, yeah, you can imagine how someone would have that kind of rancor towards someone. So, David, on your side, you said you'd only just read like a little. What you said? You only read the.
Well, okay, I read it a very, very long time ago, literally decades ago. I forgot 80% of the book, of the novella. Excuse me. I don't even remember the Down Under at all. In fact, I'm questioning a little bit. Did I read it or did I read a synopsis of it at this point? I'm not 100% sure.
You had this look on your face when it came up. You were just like.
Why are we suddenly playing Fallout? Yeah, exactly. I liked it overall. It was just not. What little I remember was not what I was expecting.
Okay.
Yes, they got the feel of it, and yes, they changed the ending, but not enough that it would. I can see why Harlan would have hated it because Harlan was Harlan, but it didn't bother me.
Mm-hmm. Does this film kind of age well by any stretch of the imagination? Like I said before, I think I think there was that spell where it was archaic, but now all of a sudden it seems to have come back to being relevant again. Do you guys think people should watch it nowadays?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think it's worth
Oh,
watching.
yeah.
I had no expectations for this, except I know that it's Harlan Ellison. I had no real expectations as far as what this was, as far as an adaptation goes. I was just looking at this as just how it was as a post-apocalyptic film, and it is, I will say to its credit, as a low-budget film, I was actually kind of a fan of a lot of the shots that he used. Particularly, I love this dissolve that he does, where it's the silhouette of Vic and blood on both sides, where it looked like...
Right after he's Rob Fellini.
Yeah, right after he's Rob Fellini, and then you're seeing just this very peaceful, serene shot. It's kind of unconventional. Most of the time, when you see a post-apocalyptic anything, it's always violent, it's always crazy, it's always like Do For You, with his guitar that shoots flames. Whereas in this case, and it's all very serene. Yeah. They still say that there's dangerous stuff out there, but
there was a community, the little town watching the Stag films, and
it seems like they've actually come to some kind of equilibrium with their environment.
He goes into even more in the novella. The group that puts on the films, it's a rover pack, but it's not one of the more violent rover packs because, let's face it, films are popular. They're not untouchable per se, but for the most part, everybody leaves them alone because they have the equipment and the films. And it's the they called themselves the Our Gang.
That it seemed like a lot of people seem to have that similar bond with their dogs.
So yeah,
so
it was something apparently that happened before the war, but
the one thing I will say I noticed they didn't really get into that with some of the other ones. They just happened to, oh hey, we've got dogs. I kind of noticed that they only seem to focus on that strictly between Vic and Blood, and I kind of like that because it makes their bond a bit more special, I guess. Something a bit more poignant for the sake of this movie, something for the audience to click with.
Vic really would have loved for all three of them to be able to continue on. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And there's no other way he can get food for Blood. And in fact, Vic is haunted for some. At one point, Blood talks about being haunted by these spirits of these girls in frilly pink dresses that are torn down or mutilated that start doing, and he starts realizing it's coming from Vic's subconscious. That's what's tormenting him, and there's some.
Dang! Now I kind of sad this movie didn't do well because that would have made for an interesting follow up right there. I guess in closing, final verdict.
Good.
Yeah.
Mine.
Yeah, you evidently really dig it. Given all the fears I have about the way things are going now, I'd say this one definitely did a good job tapping into it. Though I will admit the whole committee angle in the Down Under was the part that just completely sucker punched me. Wasn't expecting it, but at the same time I was still going, yeah, this also kind of makes a weird sort of sense. So for all of you, I definitely think if you love the post-apocalyptic genre, if you love Harlan Ellison, if you're very paranoid about as I like to call it, Teotihuacan, if you're very paranoid about that, this is probably the movie that you shouldn't watch because it's the one that it probably most likely will be like.
Although you could call it, under those circumstances, you could call it a survivor's guide.
Yeah, I just hope to God you
may not want to watch it, but it may be the thing you really need to see.
Yeah, just hope to God you do develop psychic link with your animals. I don't know if I'm going to have a psychic link with Trouble. Trouble? What am I thinking? Well, I know what she's thinking. She's thinking, feed me. Boy and His Dog, if you can find it. I mean, apart from the DVD you get, isn't it widely available?
Really widely available. It's also, Blu-ray.
Blu-ray?
There is.
Okay, then it is. This is actually one of the more accessible features on Rare Delicacies. So if you can find it, definitely dig it up. So with that in mind, this one is on the menu.